Coming live from the studio, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for watching another episode of All Sports. This is your host Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I am going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, Nhl Hockey, and the Kentucky Derby. Before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off with Major League Baseball, Fernando Tatis Jr. is the first player in Major League Baseball history with 40-plus home runs and 30-plus stolen bases in his first 162 games played. The Angels announced they are releasing Albert Pujols. Is this the end of Albert Pujols? Is he going to retire? We're going to have to wait and see. Is he going to sign with a different team? We're going to have to wait and see. But as of right now, Albert Pujols will no longer play for the Angels. The Rockies announced Bill Smith will be the interim general manager. For the rest of this season, Bill Smith will be the interim general manager for the Rockies. And once this season comes to an end, the Rockies announced they will search for a new general manager this off-season. We're going to have to wait and see who that is, but hopefully it's someone outside of the Rockies organization, and it's not someone within the Rockies organization that is going to be promoted and get a new title. The Rockies have a lot of potential going into the future, and if they want to go in the right direction, the first thing they need to do is hire a general manager and bring in someone from outside of the organization. So hopefully the Rockies hire a new general manager and it's someone from outside of the organization, and we're going to have to wait and see who the new general manager of the Rockies will be this offseason. In the Major League Baseball power rankings, the current top 10 Major League Baseball teams are the Dodgers, Red Sox, Padres, White Sox, Astros, Brewers, Yankees, Giants, Royals, and Braves. Moving on now to NFL football, Ja'Wuan James is out for the 2021 season after suffering a season-ending Achilles injury. This is a big blow to the Broncos. He has only played in a few games at right tackle since he has been signed, which was back in the 2019 season. He opted out of the 2020 season. They were looking forward to have him back in 2021. Now he suffered an injury that will sideline him for the entire season. So as of right now, the Broncos' big hole to fill is right tackle, and they're looking to see what their other options are. And Ja'Wuan James was definitely a bust and a bad contract since he has only played in a few games. He opted out of last season, and now he's going to be out this season with an injury. So it's not looking good for right tackle for the Broncos right now, and hopefully they do bring in a replacement, and hopefully it's a good player too, because we definitely need a good right tackle. Can't be a backup player or someone that's not going to be good at that position. So we're going to have to wait and see who the right tackle will be for the Broncos in 2021, but it's not going to be Ja'Wuan James. The 2021 NFL Draft was in Cleveland from April 29th to May 1st. So right now I'm going to update you of everything that happened in the 2021 NFL Draft from the first round all the way to the 7th round, and I'm also going to list who the Broncos picked in the 2021 NFL Draft, and I will also tell you what players were selected in the first round of the NFL Draft and what were the highlights from the 2021 NFL Draft. Now if we take a look at the NFL Draft, here are the players that got selected in the first round of the draft. The Jaguars had the first overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, and they selected Trevor Lawrence. The Jets had the second pick, and they selected Zach Wilson. The 49ers had the third pick, and they selected Trey Lance. The Falcons had the fourth pick, and they selected Kyle Pitts. The Bengals had the fifth pick, and they selected Jamar Chase. The Dolphins had the sixth pick, and they selected Jalen Waddle. The Lions had the 7th pick and they selected Pujols. The Panthers had the 8th pick and they selected J.C. Horn. The Broncos had the 9th pick and they selected Patrick Surtain II. The Eagles had the 10th pick and they selected Devonta Smith. The Bears had the 11th pick and they selected Justin Fields. The Cowboys had the 12th pick and they selected Micah Parsons. The Chargers had the 13th pick and they selected Rashawn Slater. The Jets had the 14th pick and they selected Elijah Vera Tucker. The Patriots had the 15th pick and they selected Mac Jones. The Cardinals had the 16th pick and they selected Zavon Collins. The Raiders had the 17th pick and they selected Alex Leatherwood. The Dolphins had the 18th pick and they selected Jalen Phillips. Washington had the 19th pick and they selected Jalen Davis. The Giants had the 20th pick and they selected Curtis Toney. The Colts had the 21st pick and they selected Kitty Pay. The Titans had the 22nd pick and they selected Caleb Farley. The Vikings had the 23rd pick and they selected Christian Darnsaw. The Steelers had the 24th pick and they selected Najee Harris. The Jaguars had the 25th pick and they selected Travis Etienne. The Browns had the 26th pick and they selected Greg Newsome II. The Ravens had the 27th pick and they selected Rashad Bitterman. The Saints had the 28th pick and they selected Peyton Turner. The Packers had the 29th pick and they selected Eric Stokes. The Bills had the 30th pick and they selected Greg Newsome. The Ravens had the 31st pick and they selected Jalen Oni. And the Buccaneers had the 32nd pick and they selected Joe Tryon. So those are all the players that got selected in the first round by the teams that had a first round draft pick. The highlights from the 2021 NFL draft, especially in the first round, was some of the players that got selected in the first round. The one player that was guaranteed to be picked first overall by the Jaguars, but he was for sure a guaranteed first overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft, no matter what team had the first pick, was Trevor Lawrence. He was the first overall pick by the Jaguars. All the quarterbacks, the top 5 quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL draft were drafted in the first round. The top 5 quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL draft were drafted in the first round. Trevor Lawrence was the first pick to the Jaguars. Zach Wilson was the second pick to the Jets. Trey Lance was the third pick to the 49ers. Justin Fields was the 11th pick to the Bears, and Mac Jones was the 15th pick to the Patriots. Before the start of the 2021 NFL Draft, there were some trades that happened, especially in the first round, and on draft day, trades did happen in the first round. The biggest trade that happened was with the Bears moving from the 20th pick up to the 11th pick to draft a quarterback. At the 9th pick, there were 2 quarterbacks still on the board that the Broncos could have selected. Justin Fields and Mac Jones were still available, but the Broncos landed up passing on both quarterbacks that were still on the board, and the Bears landed up moving up in the draft to draft a quarterback, and they landed up taking Justin Fields at the 11th pick, and then Mac Jones was drafted at the 15th pick by the Patriots. There were more quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL Draft that were drafted in the later rounds, but the top 5 quarterbacks were drafted in the first round. And there were other trades that happened in the later rounds of the draft, but there were still a few trades that happened on draft night in the first round. And definitely the trade that the Bears made was the biggest trade of the draft night. And they moved up to hopefully draft their quarterback of the future, and they landed up drafting Justin Fields. So we're going to have to wait and see how the top 5 quarterbacks play in the NFL going into the future, and if they're going to be the quarterback of the future for the team that drafted him. But there's no doubt that the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft definitely have the potential of being the next great quarterback to play in the NFL. And all 5 quarterbacks definitely have a chance at being one of the next best quarterbacks to play in the NFL. The 2021 NFL Draft was a great draft. A lot happened throughout the draft, from round 1 all the way to round 7. Even from the beginning to the end of the draft, the 2021 NFL Draft was in Cleveland, and it was definitely a great draft, especially in the first round. The first round was very exciting to watch. Regardless if you only watched the first round or you happen to watch the remaining rounds, all the rounds in the 2021 NFL Draft were great rounds, especially the first round, and it was definitely a great draft to watch. And a lot of great players definitely got drafted in the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, if we take a look at what happened in the 2021 NFL Draft, here are the highlights from the 2021 NFL Draft. The top 5 quarterbacks were drafted in the first round. Kyle Pitts became the highest drafted tight end. Alabama became the first school in the common draft era to have 5 offensive players selected in the first round of a single draft. Alabama had 6 players selected in the first round of the draft. Here is who the Broncos drafted in this year's draft. The Broncos selected cornerback Patrick Surtain II with the 9th pick. They selected running back Devontae Williams with the 35th pick. They selected offensive lineman Quinn Mertz with the 98th pick. They selected linebacker Baron Bowen with the 105th pick. They selected safety Caden Stearns with the 152nd pick. They selected safety Jamar Johnson with the 164th pick. They selected wide receiver Seth Williams with the 219th pick. They selected cornerback Kerry Vincent Jr. with the 237th pick. They selected outside linebacker Jonathan Cooper with the 239th pick. And they selected defensive end Marquise Spencer with the 253rd pick. So taking a look at the draft for the Broncos, they definitely got graded between an A and a B for this year's draft. This year's draft was definitely focused on defense and improving their defense. The Broncos definitely improved their team on defense and on both sides of the football during free agency, and their goal was to improve their team even more during the draft, and their focus was on defense this year since they focused on offense the last 2 years. And there's no doubt that the Broncos definitely improved their defense during the draft. They drafted a lot of defensive players. And the Broncos are trying to get that no-fly zone defense back. Are they going to have the no-fly zone 2.0 defense this season and going into the future? We're going to have to wait and see. But they're definitely off to a good start since they have drafted defensive players. In this offseason, they focused on improving their defense and making it better. We'll have to wait and see how the Broncos play in 2021. But they look like they potentially are going to be a better team on both offense and defense. We're going to have to wait and see who plays at the quarterback position for the Broncos. Is it going to be between Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater since they're currently on the Broncos? We're going to have to wait and see. Is a different quarterback like Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers going to be the quarterback for the Broncos? We're going to have to wait and see. Anything can happen in the next few weeks with the Broncos and the rest of the NFL teams. Now we're going to have to wait and see who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Broncos for the 2021 season. Is it going to be someone currently on the roster? Is it going to be someone that's not on the roster? We're going to have to wait and see. There's definitely a few names being thrown out there. Drew Lock still has the highest chance of being the starting quarterback. He's still on the team. The Broncos brought in Teddy Bridgewater. He could possibly be the starting quarterback. There's rumors about Aaron Rodgers, and there's still rumors about Deshaun Watson. We're going to have to wait and see. It'll definitely be interesting to see who will be the starting quarterback for the Broncos. But one thing for sure, whoever the starting quarterback for the Broncos is going to be is definitely going to be the best available option. And the Broncos believe that whoever is going to be the starting quarterback is going to give the Broncos the greatest chance at having a winning season and making it back into the playoffs. Is it going to be Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, or is it going to be Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson? We're going to have to wait and see. But there's a 50-50 chance that it's someone currently on the roster or someone that is not on the roster. But whoever the quarterback is for the Broncos, hopefully they win games for the team and they can get the Broncos back into the playoffs. And hopefully the Broncos are a better team in 2021 and they can win games and get back into the playoffs. We're going to have to wait and see how the Broncos play in 2021. But they have definitely improved this team this offseason during free agency and during the draft. Now we'll have to wait and see how the rest of the NFL teams play in 2021. But most NFL teams have definitely improved their team during free agency and during the draft. Now, for players that got drafted, they're getting a chance at playing in the NFL. But there were players that still did not get drafted. And players that went undrafted and they're going to get signed by an NFL team are going to have a chance at making it onto an NFL roster and potentially playing in the NFL. And just because players went undrafted doesn't mean they're not going to have a chance in the NFL. And the undrafted players that get a chance in the NFL definitely have a chance at being the next best player. There's been a lot of great undrafted players on the Broncos and on the rest of the teams that landed up being one of the best players at that position. And there has been Hall of Fame players that were undrafted. So don't count out the undrafted players. And for the players that got drafted, they're getting a chance at playing in the NFL and possibly becoming the next great player at their position. So no matter if the player is drafted or when undrafted, as long as they get signed to an NFL team, they will have a chance at playing in the NFL and becoming the next great player in the NFL. The 2021 NFL draft was definitely a great draft. It was in Cleveland. It was definitely a great city to host an NFL draft. And now that the NFL draft is behind us, we are now looking forward to the 2021 NFL season. So what to watch for in the next few weeks? The release of the 2021 schedule for all 32 teams, and the beginning of the 2021 season that starts in just a few weeks with training camp, preseason, and just before you know it, the regular season will begin in the next few months. The 2021 NFL draft was in Cleveland. It was definitely a great draft. Cleveland was definitely a great city to host an NFL draft. And the 2022 NFL draft will be in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas will definitely be a great city to host a big event like the NFL draft. They were supposed to host it in 2020. They were not able to host the draft due to the coronavirus pandemic, but Las Vegas will be hosting the 2022 NFL draft. Moving on now to NBA basketball, Carmelo Anthony moved into 10th on the all-time scoring list. LeBron James moved into 19th in all-time games played. Steph Curry made the most three-pointers in a calendar month. Steph Curry became the fastest player to reach 300 three-pointers made in a season. Michael Malone now has 300 career coaching wins. Michael Malone was named Western Conference Coach of the Month. The Nuggets have clinched their third straight playoff berth. So right now I'm going to update you with the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. To start off in the Eastern Conference, the 76ers have the first seed, the Nets have the second seed, the Bucks have the third seed, the Knicks have the fourth seed, the Hawks have the fifth seed, the Celtics have the sixth seed, the Heat have the seventh seed, the Hornets have the eighth seed. Some teams still fighting for a playoff spot include the Pacers and the Wizards. In the Western Conference, the Jazz have the first seed, the Suns have the second seed, the Clippers have the third seed, the Nuggets have the fourth seed, the Mavericks have the fifth seed, the Lakers have the sixth seed, the Trailblazers have the seventh seed, the Warriors have the eighth seed. Some teams still fighting for a playoff spot in the Western Conference includes the Grizzlies and the Spurs. So that's the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. Moving on now to Nhl Hockey. So right now I'm going to update you with the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. In the NHL, the division standings go off the amount of points the team scored, not by the wins or losses by the team. So to start off in the Central Division, right now the Hurricanes lead this division and the next closest teams are the Lightning and the Panthers. In the East Division, right now the Penguins are leading this division and the next closest teams are the Capitals and the Bruins. In the West Division, right now the Golden Knights are leading this division and the next closest teams are the Avalanche and the Wild. And in the North Division, right now the Maple Leafs are leading this division and the next closest team is the Oilers. So that's the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. Moving on now to the Kentucky Derby. The Kentucky Derby was on Saturday, May 1st. Medina Spirit won the 147 Kentucky Derby. Trainer Bob Barefoot set a new record for winning his 7th Kentucky Derby. Moving on now to the show. What to watch for this week in sports: the Rockies, Major League Baseball, the Nuggets, NBA Basketball, the Avalanche, Nhl Hockey. Moving on now, on the next show I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA Basketball, and Nhl Hockey. I hope you all have a great week. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next week. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.